Welcome back to the Cowboys Report, everyone. Today, we're diving deep into a major development coming out of Dallas. The Cowboys have officially moved on from defensive coordinator Matt Eberflus. This decision has already sent shockwaves across the NFL landscape. Whether you agree with the move or not, one thing is clear. Dallas is at a crossroads defensively. This roster still has elite talent, still has playoff expectations, and still plays under the brightest lights in football. So today's episode is all about what comes next. We're going to break down 10 potential replacements, starting from number 10 all the way to the top candidate. We'll talk scheme fit, coaching philosophy, player development, locker room leadership, and, most importantly, how each candidate could change the identity of the Cowboys' defense. This is not hot take analysis. This is a real football conversation. So settle in, because this is a deep one. Why Matt Eberflus was fired. Before we talk replacements, we need context. Matt Eberflus came into Dallas with a reputation built on discipline, effort, and takeaways. His defenses historically emphasized hustle, zone coverage, and forcing turnovers. But over time, cracks began to show. The Cowboys' defense under Eberflus became predictable. Offenses learned how to attack the soft spots in coverage, exploit mismatches in the middle of the field, and neutralize pressure packages. In big games, especially against elite quarterbacks, Dallas struggled to adjust. Missed tackles, communication breakdowns, late-game collapses. When you coach in Dallas, good is not good enough. You're judged on January football, and ultimately, the front office decided it was time to reset. 10. Gus Bradley, 49ers assistant head coach. Let's start at number 10, Gus Bradley. Bradley is one of the most experienced defensive minds in the league. He's a longtime disciple of Pete Carroll, and his defensive philosophy is clear: cover, 3, speed, discipline, and rally to the football. With the 49ers, Bradley has worked in a system that emphasizes defensive line dominance and structured coverage behind it. For Dallas, this would represent a move toward stability rather than innovation. The upside? Veteran leadership, proven systems, clear communication. The downside? Bradley's scheme can feel dated against modern, motion-heavy offenses. Cowboys fans might see fewer creative blitzes and more conservative looks. Bradley would raise the floor, but maybe not the ceiling. At number 9, Clint Hurt. Hurt is a rising name, especially among defensive line coaches. In Philadelphia, he's been instrumental in developing elite trench play. His defenses emphasize physicality, gap discipline, and collapsing the pocket without excessive blitzing. For Dallas, this would be a trenches first hire. Hurt could unlock even more from the Cowboys' pass rush, particularly if the team wants to dominate up front and simplify coverage responsibilities on the back end. However, Hurt has limited experience calling full defenses. He's more projection than certainty. This would be a bet on development over reputation. 8. Jeff Ulbrich, former Falcons DC. Jeff Ulbrich checks a lot of boxes. He's intense. He's respected. He's a former linebacker who understands modern hybrid defenses. Ulbrich's schemes tend to be aggressive, blending pressure with versatile linebacker play. In Dallas, that could translate into more creativity in the front seven and more flexibility against the run. The concern? His previous defenses have been inconsistent, especially against elite quarterbacks. Ulbrich would bring energy and edge, but the question is whether he brings elite adjustments. 7. Aubrey Pleasant, Rams pass game coordinator. This is a fascinating name. Aubrey Pleasant has quietly built one of the strongest reputations in the league for defensive back development. His work with the Rams has emphasized coverage disguises, matchup-based game plans, and situational awareness. For a Cowboys defense that has struggled in coverage during critical moments, Pleasant could be transformative. He represents the modern defensive mind, adaptable, detail-oriented, and player-centric. The risk? Limited experience as a full defensive coordinator. But sometimes the next great coordinator comes from exactly this background. 6. Dennard Wilson, Titans DC. Dennard Wilson brings toughness. His defenses are physical, disciplined, and built to survive in ugly games. In Tennessee, Wilson has leaned on aggressive run fits and coverage accountability. For Dallas, this would signal a shift toward defensive identity over flash. Wilson could help the Cowboys become more reliable in short yardage situations and late-game scenarios. The concern is whether his style maximizes Dallas' speed and athleticism or restricts it. 5. Al Harris, Bears DB coach. Cowboys fans know this name. Al Harris understands the culture, the expectations, and the pressure of Dallas. As a defensive backs coach, he's earned respect for his ability to teach technique and confidence. Promoting Harris would create continuity and locker room buy-in. But the leap from position coach to full defensive coordinator is massive. This would be an emotional hire, not necessarily a strategic one. 4. Fired head coaches. This category matters. Recently fired head coaches often become elite coordinators. They've seen everything. They've failed. They've learned. Dallas could target someone hungry, experienced, and eager to rebuild their reputation. This option offers the highest floor, but depends entirely on who becomes available. 3. Jim Schwartz, Browns DC. Now we're getting serious. Jim Schwartz is one of the most respected defensive coordinators in football. His defenses are aggressive, attacking, and relentless. Schwartz believes in dictating terms. He doesn't wait for offenses to make mistakes. He forces them. In Dallas, Schwartz could unleash the pass rush and simplify reads for the secondary. The concern? His style can be boom or bust. But in a league where pressure wins, Schwartz makes sense. 2. Jim Leonhard, Broncos pass game coordinator. Jim Leonhard is a coach's coach. Elite football IQ, modern schematic understanding, strong communicator. Leonhard blends college innovation with NFL structure. His defenses disguise coverage, adapt weakly, and emphasize situational mastery. For Dallas, this would be a future-focused hire. He could modernize the defense without sacrificing toughness. 1. Brian Flores, Vikings DC. At number 1, and it's not close, Brian Flores. Flores is exactly what Dallas needs. Aggressive, fearless, adaptive. His defenses attack protections, confuse quarterbacks, and punish mistakes. Flores doesn't run one system. He runs game plans. In Dallas, Flores could finally unlock a defense that dominates in January, not just September. The only question is politics, not football. The Cowboys are at a defining moment. This hire will shape their identity for years. Do they play it safe? Do they chase innovation? Or do they go all in for dominance? One thing is certain. This decision will tell us everything about where the Cowboys believe they are as a franchise. And that's why this hire matters more than people realize. Welcome to Cowboys Report today. Something had to change for the Dallas Cowboys defense after a disastrous season. That decision came on Tuesday when the team fired defensive coordinator Matt Eberflus after just one season in the position, sources told CBS Sports' Jonathan Jones. The Cowboys will now have a fourth different defensive coordinator in as many seasons. Dallas ranked as the NFL's worst scoring defense, allowing 30.1 points per game. That's the second most points per game allowed in the 66-season history of the Cowboys, with only Dallas' inaugural 1960 team that went 0-11-1 being worse. The Cowboys capped off a 7-9-1 season on Sunday with a 34-17 loss in New York against the Giants. Eberflus took ownership and accountability for Dallas' lack of defensive execution on New Year's Day. So naturally, he was held accountable for his unit's results. Ownership and accountability is right with me. Eberflus said, I'm the defensive coordinator, so it's always that. I take full accountability. We wanted to see more progress during the course of the year. It was just more up and down. It just wasn't linear. It is worth noting Jones did trade away all-pro edge rusher Micah Parsons, the team's best defensive player, to the Green Bay Packers after failed extension talks a week before the 2025 season began. That put Eberflus in a tough spot before the season even began. Obviously, you have an all-pro pass rusher that wins really quick. Parsons, that's certainly going to help any defense if it's Micah, or if it's Myles Garrett, or whoever that might be. But that impact player is always going to help to a certain degree in pass downs and other downs, Eberflus said. Again, you can't look back, right? It is what it is, and then you just focus where you are. Dallas defense was sidetracked by injuries up and down their cornerback position with Darren Bland, foot, ex-Cowboy, Trayvon Diggs, knee/concussion, Siobhan Revel, knee, and Kalen Carson, knee, hamstring. Diggs and Eberflus also clashed about zone versus man coverage usage all year long before Dallas released him after Week 17. I think the start of the year, guys were in and out in terms of we weren't at full force, Eberflus said. And then when we got some guys back, I thought we had a good stretch there. I thought the stretch was pretty good. We started to improve. I know we improved in the run defense and the third down defense. And then from there, we just didn't execute the way we wanted to at certain moments. Certainly some good execution in there at times, but it's got to be better. The additions of three-time Pro Bowl defensive tackle Kenny Clark in the Parsons trade and All-Pro defensive tackle Quinnen Williams in a trade deadline deal with the New York Jets helped the Cowboys improve their run defense. Dallas ranked 29th in run defense in 2024, 137.1 rushing yards per game allowed, and 23rd in 2025, 125.5 rushing yard per game allowed. However, the Cowboys were the NFL's worst passing defense, allowing 251.5 passing yards per game because of a lack of sack production without Parsons, 35 in 2025, tied for the 11th fewest in the league, and disarray in coverage in the secondary. Jones took some accountability for Dallas' defensive woes, saying he understands the team has to acquire better players on all three levels of its defense in order to improve in 2026 no matter who is calling the plays. What that defense represents is the personnel department that represents above that my department. It represents everybody involved in contracts. We all take it, and that's no kidding, Jones said on January 2nd on 105.3 The Fan in Dallas. I'll assure you we won't walk in there and say, you know what, Eberflus and this guy over here and this guy over here, let's change that out and it'll all be right. Let's go get a Coke and let them think about it. That's not how it works. However, if given the chance to go back in time at the start of 2025, Eberflus felt he didn't think he would do anything differently. That's an intriguing stance to take after coordinating a defense that ranked bottom 3 in the NFL in numerous key metrics this season. I don't really think about it that way, Eberflus said. I think about being in the moment and just keep adjusting and learning and growing and getting better. I don't think I'd do anything differently. I think I would just work to adjust when you get different players in and those things. I think that's what you do as a coach. Other pieces of clarity we have is draft position. The Cowboys are officially locked into the number 12 overall pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, and that matters more than some people might realize. This wasn't just a random outcome. The Cowboys' loss to the Giants combined with the Falcons' win directly impacted the draft order, allowing Dallas to move up and secure a better position. In a draft that is shaping up to be deep at multiple positions of need, picking at number 12 puts the Cowboys right in the middle of the action. At number 12, the Cowboys are in a sweet spot. They're high enough to land a premium talent, but not so high that they're locked into one position or one type of player. This is the range where teams can react to how the board falls. If quarterbacks push elite defenders down, Dallas benefits. If offensive tackles rise early, defensive playmakers may be sitting right there. Flexibility is power on draft night, and the Cowboys will have it. As we look ahead to potential draft targets, one thing becomes clear very quickly. Defense is going to be a major theme. Linebacker, edge rusher, corner, and safety all show up when you start mapping out realistic options at number 12. That tells you a lot about how the Cowboys see their roster. This isn't about tearing things down. It's about upgrading speed, physicality, and long-term stability. One name that immediately jumps off the board is Arvell Reese, linebacker from Ohio State. Reese brings size, speed, and instincts, and he fits exactly what modern NFL defenses want at linebacker. He can move sideline to sideline, handle coverage responsibilities, and still come downhill with authority. Drafting a linebacker at 12 might not feel flashy to some fans, but it's the kind of move that stabilizes a defense for years. Reese isn't just a tackler, he's a tone setter. Staying with Ohio State, Sonny Styles is another name to watch closely. Styles is versatile, physical, and comfortable playing in space. He gives you flexibility in how you deploy your defense, whether that's as a hybrid linebacker, safety, or matchup piece against modern offenses. The Cowboys have struggled at times with versatility on defense, and Styles would directly address that issue. This is the kind of pick that defensive coordinators love, even if casual fans have to warm up to it. Then there's Caleb Downs, one of the most exciting defensive backs in the entire draft class. If Downs is available at 12, the Cowboys will have a serious decision to make. He brings instincts, range, and playmaking ability on the back end, something Dallas has been searching for consistently. A safety like Downs can erase mistakes, disguise coverages, and change the way offenses game plan. Drafting him would be a statement that the Cowboys want to control games defensively from the secondary out. Edge rusher is another position that cannot be ignored, and there are several names that make sense in this range. Reuben Bain Jr. out of Miami is a powerful, explosive edge defender who can win with strength and quickness. He brings energy, physicality, and upside. David Bailey from Texas Tech offers a different profile, with speed and bend that translate well to the NFL pass rush game. Keldrick Falk from Auburn is another intriguing option, known for his motor and ability to disrupt plays even when he doesn't get home. The Cowboys know that you can never have enough pass rushers, especially in a conference loaded with elite quarterbacks. Cornerback also looms large, especially with names like Mansour Delane from LSU and Jermad McCoy from Tennessee. Delane brings size and physicality, fitting the profile of an outside corner who can handle press coverage. McCoy offers athleticism and ball skills, giving you someone who can grow into a true number one corner over time. In today's NFL, cornerback isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. If the Cowboys believe one of these players can anchor the secondary, number 12 is exactly where you make that move. Offensively, there are a couple of names worth serious discussion. Jeremy Love from Notre Dame is a dynamic running back with burst, vision, and big playability. Drafting a running back at 12 is always controversial, but if the Cowboys believe Love is a true difference maker, it could reshape their offense. Meanwhile, offensive tackle prospects like Francis Magioa from Miami and Spencer Fano from Utah address long-term needs in the trenches. You win in the NFL by controlling the line of scrimmage, and investing in offensive tackle is investing in the future of your quarterback and your offense. When you step back and look at all of these names together, one thing becomes obvious. The Cowboys are positioned to draft a cornerstone player. This isn't about filling a temporary hole. This is about finding someone who will still matter 3, 4, 5 years down the line. The outcome of week May 18th have felt disappointing in the moment, especially with the loss to the Giants. But in the long view, it reshaped the Cowboys' draft future in a meaningful way. As draft season unfolds, the conversation will evolve. Board will change. Prospects will rise and fall. But the reality won't change. The Cowboys are picking 12th, and that pick could define the direction of this franchise. Whether it's defense, offense, or the trenches, Dallas has an opportunity to get it right. Cowboys Nation will debate, argue, and speculate all the way up to draft night. But when the card is finally turned in, we'll find out exactly how the Cowboys view themselves. This draft isn't just about talent. It's about identity. And at number 12, the Cowboys have a chance to choose who they want to be. Cowboys Nation talking, arguing, and sometimes fighting on the timeline, and that's the mock draft and trade debate. With the Cowboys locked into the number 12 overall pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the big question isn't just who they'll take, but whether they should stay right where they are, trade up, or trade back. And this is where philosophy comes into play, because how you approach this decision tells you a lot about how the Cowboys view their roster and their urgency to win right now. If the Cowboys stay put at number 12, they're betting that one of their true top-tier prospects falls into their lap. This is the safest option. No extra draft capital spent, no panic move, just letting the board come to you. In most mock drafts, this is where players like Arvell Reese, Sonny Styles, Caleb Downs, or one of the top edge rushers could realistically be available. Staying at 12 means trusting your scouting department and trusting that patience will be rewarded. For a front office that values discipline, this approach makes a lot of sense. But now let's talk about trading up because this is where things get controversial. Trading up from 12 would signal that the Cowboys believe there is a true difference maker at the top of the board who cannot be missed. Maybe that's Caleb Downs if he starts slipping but won't make it past the top 10. Maybe it's a dominant edge rusher like Reuben Bain Jr., who the Cowboys believe can change games immediately. Trading up costs draft capital, and that's the risk. You're sacrificing future depth for present impact. The question is whether this roster is close enough to justify that kind of move. If the Cowboys trade up, they're essentially saying, we know exactly who we want, and we're not leaving it a chance. That can be powerful, but it can also be dangerous. Miss on that pick, and you've set yourself back not just for one season, but for multiple years. Cowboys fans have seen both sides of this before. Aggressive moves can redefine a team, but they can also haunt you. Now let's flip the script and talk about trading back, because this might actually be the most realistic scenario of all. Trading back from number 12 would mean the Cowboys believe the talent drop-off is minimal and that they can still land a quality starter later in the first round. This approach aligns perfectly with a team that wants more bites at the apple. More picks mean more chances to hit. If Dallas can move back 5 to 8 spots and still land a corner like Mansour Delane, an edge like David Bailey, or a tackle like Spencer Fano, while adding an extra second or third-round pick, that's a win on paper. The risk with trading back is obvious. You might miss out on your guy. If there's one player you truly believe in and he's sitting there at 12, trading back and watching another team take him can be painful. This is where conviction matters. Do the Cowboys have a clear top target, or do they see this draft as a cluster of similarly graded players? That internal board will decide everything. Now, let's put this into a mock draft context. Imagine the top of the draft goes heavy offense early, quarterbacks, offensive tackles, maybe a wide receiver or two. Suddenly, defensive players start sliding. At 12, the Cowboys could be staring at a dream scenario where Caleb Downs or Arvell Reese is still available. In that situation, trading back becomes much harder to justify. You take the player, turn the card, and don't overthink it. On the other hand, imagine a board where the top defensive names are gone, and you're looking at multiple edge rushers, corners, and offensive linemen with similar grades. That's when the phone should be ringing. That's when a trade back makes sense. You accumulate value, stay flexible, and let the draft come to you. This is how smart teams stay competitive year after year. What about offense? That's where the Jeremiah Love debate comes in. Taking a running back at 12 will divide the fan base immediately. Some will argue he's a game changer who elevates the entire offense. Others will say the value simply isn't there. In a trade-back scenario, drafting Love later in the first round suddenly feels more reasonable. Context matters, and draft position changes perception. When you zoom out, the mock draft and trade debate isn't really about one pick. It's about identity. Are the Cowboys a team that plays it safe and trusts development? Are they a team willing to take a big swing for immediate impact? Or are they a team that prioritizes volume and flexibility? Each option tells a different story about how the Cowboys see their window. At number 12, the Cowboys control their destiny more than people realize. They don't have to force anything. They don't have to panic. But they also can't afford to be passive. The best drafts are proactive without being reckless. As draft night approaches, the Cowboys front office will be judged not just on the player they select, but on the path they chose to get there. Whether they stay, move up, or move back, that decision will echo long after the pick is announced. And for Cowboys Nation, that's what makes this draft so fascinating. But speeds up behind the scenes. When the games stop, the real work begins, and for this franchise, that work comes with pressure that very few teams in the league truly understand. The Cowboys don't evaluate seasons the same way other teams do. They don't ask if they were competitive or if they showed progress. They ask one question: did this team move closer to a championship? And once again, that question doesn't have a comfortable answer. Right now, the biggest cloud hanging over this offseason is the future of Matt Eberflus. Officially, no decision has been announced. Unofficially, around the NFL, the expectation remains that Eberflus is going to be fired. That expectation didn't come from one bad performance or one ugly loss. It came from pattern, inconsistency, missed opportunities, and a defense that never fully felt like it reached the level it was supposed to reach. In Dallas, you don't get unlimited time to figure things out. The standard is immediate impact, and when that standard isn't met, patience wears thin very quickly. What makes this situation more complex is the timing and the messaging coming from the Cowboys themselves. Brian Schottenheimer recently spoke about the team's timeline, and his words were deliberate. He talked about going through the process, doing the work, and not rushing any decisions. He mentioned the next 10 to 12 days as a critical evaluation period. On the surface, that sounds responsible, even smart. But in the NFL, not rushing doesn't mean standing still. While the Cowboys are evaluating, other teams are interviewing, negotiating, and locking in their futures. Time is a resource in this league, and how you use it often determines whether you're ahead or behind. Pause. Compare patience versus urgency. Give an example from past Cowboys off-seasons. If and when the Cowboys move on from Eberflus, the next question won't just be who replaces him, but what direction the franchise truly wants to go. Are the Cowboys still committed to building around defense? Or do they believe the modern NFL demands an offensive-minded leader? This roster has talent on both sides of the ball, but talent alone doesn't create identity. Identity comes from coaching, from philosophy, from the way a team responds when things go wrong. The next head coach will have to do more than call plays. He'll have to manage personalities, handle pressure, and make adjustments in real time. Coaching the Cowboys isn't just a football job. It's a leadership test under constant scrutiny. While fans tend to focus on coaching, the front office is also preparing for some of the hardest decisions of the offseason: roster cuts. Every year, teams talk about culture and loyalty, but the salary cap doesn't care about feelings. The Cowboys will have to identify players whose contracts no longer match their production, players whose health has become a concern, and players who may not fit the scheme of the next coaching staff. These decisions are never easy, especially when they involve veterans who have been part of the locker room. But if Dallas wants flexibility, these moves are unavoidable. Championships are built by tough choices made early, not comfortable ones delayed too long. According to ESPN, the Cowboys' expected off-season plan of attack reflects their traditional philosophy. Stability at quarterback remains a priority. The draft will be the primary tool for adding depth and youth. Free agency will be approached carefully, not aggressively. This isn't a team that wants to win March headlines. It's a team that wants to win in January and February. The risk, of course, is that conservative approaches can fall behind in an aggressive league. Other teams are willing to take bigger swings, and sometimes those swings change the balance of power. The Cowboys believe discipline wins in the long run, but belief alone isn't enough without results. As the next 10 to 12 days unfold, everything connects. The coaching decision affects the roster. The roster affects the draft strategy. The draft strategy shapes the 2026 season. This is how off-seasons quietly define franchises. There may not be a single headline-grabbing moment, but the accumulation of these decisions will tell us exactly who the Cowboys are and where they're going. The team says it's about the process, and now they have to prove that the process leads somewhere different than it has in recent years. Cowboys Nation has heard the promises before.